It's Italian American Week, and we have Dan Lauria on. Thank you so much for schlepping in on Metro North from New York.
My pleasure.
We want to brag about you on this show. Actor known for your work as Jack Arnold, the dad on The Wonder Years. You started as Vince Lombardi, film, television, theater. You're an author, and currently you're doing something called Dinner with the Boys.
Dinner with the Boys.
All right.
It was written a while back.
So first of all, let's take a look at some of the pictures so we can get everybody refreshed on what you've done in your life, a lot of things. Here's the Wonder Years. Talk about this ensemble for a second, and what are they doing?
Oh, you know, you always hear these stories about how kids on TV shows are not doing well, and that's not true. About 15% don't do well. On the Wonder Years, Fred Savage is probably the leading director of four-camera sitcom television. Jason Hervey is a very successful producer of reality shows. Josh Saviano played Paulie. He's a big-time entertainment lawyer in New York. He's the entertainment lawyer for Spider-Man.
Wow.
Allie's still working on the soap opera. And Danica, my girl Danica, she has written her 4th math book. And we're all, you know, we all keep in touch. I see Danica a lot. I even babysit her kids sometimes.
And that's so good to hear. Let's look at Lombardi, and people loved you for this, and you look like him. Tell me about that.
Well, that's not
play.
a compliment, but yeah. Okay.
Well, I think it is. I think it is. So tell me about this play and what it meant to you.
Well, it was, first of all, most people don't know that I was rejected by all the theater owners. But I had helped Tommy Kail, and Lynn, who are the director and writer of Hamilton, the biggest show in New York. I helped them before In the Heights. And sure enough, Tommy got the job to direct Lombardi. And he wanted me. And the producer said, we would like Dan too, but the theater owners don't want him. But Tommy came up with the idea of holding a reading. He said, Dan's crazy. He'll fly in on his own money and do a reading for the writers. And we did. I did. And then Tommy came up with the idea of reading it for the NFL. And the NFL, they said, hey, if he doesn't do Lombardi, we're not going to get behind it. So luckily, our producer, Tony Ponturo, he made sure I was Lombardi.
What did that mean to you to do that role?
Well, it wasn't so much me. It meant a lot for me, but it was more about, and of course, I had Judith Light. And nobody wanted 2 television personalities because everything is movie stars. And they all closed, and we were supposed to run 10 weeks. We ran 10 months. So again, if you have a good story and you have the right actors in it, it works. It's not a matter about the movie star.
Well, you did a great job in it. And now, we talked about you being an author. The Godfather Tales. Tell me how these books, and there are 3 of them now, tell me how these got started.
Well, my godson, Julian, he'll be 9 on July 3rd. I hate that they're always texting and
Snapchatting
and all that stuff and playing those stupid video games. And I tried to get him to write his own story, and I told him anything is a story. So that's how it started. And his mother said, would you record these, Catherine? And then I just make up these wild stories, and I try to get him and his friends to create stories. And he just wrote his first one, The Moose Who Painted His Self-Portrait. As you can see, the titles are The Blue Hair Club, The Boy Who Built a Bridge Out of Carrots, The Boy Who Swallowed His Car, The Girl with the Rhinoceros in Her Mouth. Anything can be a story. Well, that's actually a very good story about a female bully. And every time she said a bad word, a rhinoceros comes out of her mouth and would knock over her friends till she was all alone.
You have no children of your own, but
No.
yet you have a godson and you have other kids that you're mentoring.
Well, in 1972, I was the National Big Brother of the Year. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was ordered actually to start a program that made the Marine Corps, you know, better. I don't know how the Marine Corps would be better, but in the light of the people. So I started a program where Marines took little brothers in Washington, D.C. And it caught on. After a while, we had about 14,000 big brothers in the Navy, the Army, and it worked. It's still running. So that was my first 2 little brothers. Matter of fact, one of them, Glenn, he worked on The Wonder Years, and then he worked on ER as a dolly grip for 11 years.
So you're
he's still
making a
in business.
difference in a lot of people's lives.
Well, I think we all can, if we just take the time to. Besides, having a kid in your life is fun. Keeps you young, It's hard for me to keep up with the 9-year-old.
And it keeps you tired, too, having 3 daughters.
Yeah, right.
So we brought you in here for Italian American Week to talk about your Italian heritage and to also talk about the fact that you played football at Southern Connecticut State University.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, and how do you get from the gridiron to becoming an actor?
Well, when I was younger, my aunt lived with us for a while, and she loved old movies. So I'd come home from football practice, and I'd eat, and she'd say, go to bed. And I'd go to bed real early, and about 2 in the morning, she'd wake me up and say, James Cagney, and we'd watch the Late Late Show.
At 2 in the morning?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah, there used to be the Late Show, the Late Late Show, $1 million movie. They showed the same movie 5 times a week, And when I got to college, I literally was telling a joke on a football field before practice, and this old woman came over and tapped on my shoulder pads and said, would you like to be in the play? And I said, I always wanted to try that. And she said, I know. And I said, how would you know? She said, because I'm the greatest acting teacher in the world. And she was Constance Welch, the woman who started the Yale Dramont. So I went over, and she had me audition for a student production of 1,000 Clowns, and I got the part of the older brother. And then she put me in her production of The Tempest. She needed a big, ugly guy to play Caliban, so she said,
please.
Get in there.
And you were how old at the time?
Well, I was a junior in college.
Okay.
20.
So you were a handsome guy then.
Oh, back then it was.
So did you get the bug then? You're playing football, you start acting.
Oh, yeah. As soon as I did one play, I said, I'm either was going to be a football coach or acting. And when I came out of the service, I went back to my hometown. I actually coached football for a while.
You're from Lindenhurst?
Yeah, Lindenhurst, Long Island. A lot of people at Southern Connecticut were from the island. So I had a chance to go to the University of Iowa for playwriting and being a graduate assistant in football. And I got a feeling if I did that, I would have probably ended up being a football coach. But just before I was ready to go, the University of Connecticut gave me a grant for playwriting. And I decided to go there.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is just one play after another.
All right, so you've written a play called Dinner with the Boys.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at a clip that we have from the show, which is opening May 4th.
Can you comprehend, can you fathom what guys like Leo and I had?
Where was I, Mars? I was there.
Yeah, you were there, but Leo and I were in the know. We had all the answers, top of the food chain.
What do you want me to say?
There's nothing to say.
I say nothing.
We had it all within our grasp. I walked this earth as few men have ever walked this earth.
Proud.
Proud crap. We walked with strength, with real muscle. They feared us.
2 truly respected men.
Respect. I don't know from respect, but I know that we knew, and everyone knew that we knew.
I never knew.
Few ever do.
I never did.
Like home.
It sounds like home. I got to tell you, I love the tablecloth, and of course I got this for this week. Tell me about what this is about. And you wrote this. Tell me about the history of Dinner with the Boys.
Well, it was written for some very good friends of mine. Dom DeLuise, you just saw Richie Zavalia playing the part that was written for Dom. Charlie Durning, that was the part I'm playing. Peter Falk and Jack Klugman. And Ray Abruzzo, Little Carmine from The Sopranos, he plays both those parts in our play. So, and I actually got to hear the 4 of them read it twice. And then Dom, who was getting much better, he had lost 125 pounds, he was feeling good, and suddenly he passed away, and then surprisingly Peter got sick. So I buried the play. And Charlie and Jack were like, they were my mentors. They passed away this Christmas Eve, it'll be 3 years. And they passed away 4 hours apart, and I gave the eulogy at both their funerals.
That hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, well, even that was, they were so much fun to be around. Jack had Gary Marshall and I read something each, because he knew he was going. And Gary Marshall read something about me, which ended with, if anybody out there is going to do a play, don't tell Lauria to dig me up and get him back on stage.
So how did you bring it off the shelf? How did it end up where it is now? It's opening May 4th.
Well, we went to the New Jersey rep. It's a small, my agents were still screaming at me, I've been on Broadway 3 years in a row, and now I'm doing a 70-seat theater in a slum of Long Branch, New Jersey. But I wanted to try to play out. It's a very twisted play. It's funny. But,
How twisted?
well, it's about all the violence we're consuming. And it was actually Dom DeLuise's idea, so I can tell you. But we tried it there, and we got 12 reviews, and all of them were raves. I'm still shocked. So a board member, Pat Addis, said, let's move it into New York. So we're trying it in New York. We'll see if it'll translate. So far, I'll tell you, the first 2 performances we did, I said, uh-oh, this was a mistake. And now the last 3, they were rolling in the aisles again.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. You know, you never know. You never. It's fun to work on. It's great to be a part of something new. I don't do old plays. The last time on my bio is Dan doesn't do plays by old dead white guys. I leave that for somebody else.
That's a great line. Yeah. We have a couple of pictures from Dinner with the Boys. And
That's Ray Abruzzo.
Yeah, the tablecloth is awesome. So who put this together? Did you have any input at how this kitchen looked?
No, Jess from New Jersey Rep. She was the set designer, and she made a very realistic kitchen. It all takes place in the kitchen. In New York, the stage is so long. Yeah, it's so long. We actually added a garden that we've talked about, but that's an optional. I try to make it something easy for regional theaters to do.
Sure.
You know, nowadays theaters are going to 90 minutes without an intermission, and that does not help regional theaters. So my show, it runs less than 2 hours with an intermission. But those regional theaters need that intermission to sell the candy and the wines and talk to subscribers.
To make some money to stay alive.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
One more picture, and I picked this because of the refrigerator magnets.
Oh.
I thought this was just great. This is, I can relate to this home.
Oh yeah, sure, that was on my kitchen.
And you got the sauce
Yeah,
on top.
we even have a plaque that says Camella's Kitchen in there, which was my mother's name.
All right, which was a great segue that brings us to the Sinatra Celebrity Cookbook, in which your mom's pizza bread,
Pizza bread.
is
It's
in
not
here.
really pizza, but that's what she called it.
Yeah, so I'm going to show this, and I'm going to put all this stuff online because our guests are all going to give us a recipe. So tell me about Carmela's pizza bread. What does that mean to you?
Well, she would roll out dough like a big pizza, and then she would put chopped ham, the butt of the ham. It was actually a peasant dish. Chopped mozzarella, oil, garlic, and then she'd roll it up into a loaf of bread and bake it. You could hear it go down.
So stuffed bread, right?
Yeah, and then for people who don't like meat, she would chop up broccoli rabe, you know, boil it, garlic and olive.
We're taping this lunchtime. That's making me hungry, right?
Yeah. I know, and then, you know, of course, Frank asked all of us to suggest, you know, a recipe, and I gave him mine. They put it in the book, and the next year when I saw him, he went, I can still taste your mother's pizza bread.
All right.
It's still going now.
So we need more stories about Frank Sinatra.
Oh, he was a
How long did you know him? How did you meet him? Tell me about the guy.
I didn't know him well. I was one of many people, celebrities, when the Wonder Years was on, that was invited to the tournament. You know, he liked having the Italians there, and we would go, and and he would always appear at the gala. Like the first time I went, it was Tony Bennett for 40 minutes, and then Frank Sinatra. His last public appearance was there. And the reason why I met him is the third year, a friend of mine, a girl from high school, Nancy McGlynn, married, 3 kids on, but she has lupus disease. And she saw the pictures online and whatever. And she said, oh, I would give anything to go to that. So the next year I sent her a round trip ticket, and I said, come on, you're going to tell your husband you're running away for a weekend. And we went to the Sinatra tournament. So, you know, we shook Frank's hand. She said, oh, I'd really like to talk to him. I said, well, you know, they got their table over there. We don't go, I sit in the back, you know. I think that year Kirk Douglas was sitting at his table.
Listen to you dropping these names.
Yeah, you know, and I'm in the back. And Nancy went to the bathroom, and she didn't come back for a long time, and I'm starting to worry. And all of a sudden, she comes in with Barbara Sinatra, yak, 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 and they go right over to the table, and she's talking to Frank. I'm over there in the corner going, whoa, hey, nothing. No.
So you changed her life.
Yeah, so she just had the greatest time, and of course, at the end, we go by, and Nancy just hugged Barbara, and then Barbara whispered something in Frank's ear. And Frank looked at me and said, way to go, kid. And I said, I'll see you next year, Mr. Sinatra. He says, looking forward to it. Well, about a month later, the credit card bill came. There was no charge for the first-class airfare. And then 2 months later, still no charge. So I called. You know, back then you could hear the lady typing on a thing, and they said it was taken care of. Now, the next year when I went back to the Sinatra tournament, after the gala, they had only elite group was invited to his house afterwards. You know, Vic Damone, they would all sing, and it would go all night. And I was invited, and I've been invited every year since. And when I went to thank Frank, I said, thanks for picking up that airfare. He goes, don't say thanks. It was my pleasure. And that's how Frank was.
I see some tears in your eyes.
Well, he's a good guy. He was a really good guy. And Tommy Dreesen, who opened for him for 17 years, is very close to Joe Mantegna, who's one of my best friends. And I helped Tommy get his one-man play written. I put him with Bobby Moresco, who wrote Crash. Got them together, and Tommy wrote and he has some great story. You ought to have him on your show.
Well, just give him my number.
Yeah.
You know, just in meeting you, you're a really great guy. You're changing people's lives. No, I don't think so. I think I'm seeing through that. So Southern Connecticut State University, growing up Italian American, what does it mean to be an Italian American? And hanging with Frank and Vic Damone and all of these guys.
Oh, no,
Tell
not
me
Vic
about
Damone.
it.
Frank I met, yeah, a number of times. No, but, you know, it's great meeting those people, and it's not so much a matter of talent, I mean, a matter of being Italian, but it's that talent. And I think Italians, I think I'm the only Italian I know who can't sing. You know, they all sing, they all were creative
I bet if you
people.
tried, you could.
No. Believe me, I was in A Christmas
Period.
Story. No. No, I have a Broadway musical to my credit, which pisses off a lot of my friends who can sing, but all the kids would make fun of me when I tried to sing.
So that's
John Rando, the director, said, you got to come in on an 8 count. I said, count slower. I didn't know what they were doing. You know, I said, see that little girl, when she moves up, I'm coming in. You know.
So you've been an actor a long time. You've
It's working.
well, there you go. And you played football, and you've had a ton of awards and honors through your life. What haven't you done yet? Because you're pretty much doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but there's always things. I mean, if you had Tom Hanks on here, and you ask him, what would you like to do? Believe me, he'd have 3 or 4 projects that he can't get made. So we all have those things. I would like to play Milton Hershey, you know, and everybody looks at me and says, what are you, nuts? But I think every entrepreneur should read his biography. You know, he built a city for his workers. He built a hospital for them. He sent his workers' kids through college. He adopted 2 kids, and then when his wife died, he turned his mansion into an orphanage that still exists today. Every CEO of Hershey's has been an orphan there. So, and he died as rich as any of his contemporaries, and a lot happier.
Sounds like you have more writing to do.
Well, we were talking about it. We were trying to get the old Steve Allen show, Meeting of Minds. As a matter of fact, Frank Megna directs Dinner with the Boys. And we recreated the 29 hours that he did. And everybody, you can go online and check on it. You can see Ed Asner was Karl Marx, little typecasting there. And you know, Bruce Davison and Wendy Malick and Charlie Shaughnessy and Gary Cole would do Steve Allen. I think the first one we did was Wendy Malick, Bella Amherst. She was the poetess, and I was Attila the Hun. Gary Cole was Steve Allen. Charlie Shaughnessy was Darwin. And they sit around the table and discuss, because we all felt that this is where education is going. It's, again, storytelling. I mean, there isn't a kid today in class who doesn't think he or she knows more than her teacher. If you ask a kid today, what are the original 13 colonies? They whip open their phone, and they'll look at you and say, you know which one had the highest population? Do you know the capital of all of them? So education has to move into the arts, not away. These politicians who keep cutting the arts have no idea where education's going. Because you can ask a kid about Alexander Hamilton, and you can ask a kid about Martin Luther King, and they can give you all the stuff that's on their phone. But could they write a conversation between the two?
Probably not.
Right. That wouldn't even enter their imagination. So that's where we have to push education. And people like Danica McKellar, who's a genius, Winnie Cooper, she agree with that. Education's got to move into the creative atmosphere, and we're not doing that.
So it sounds like you could run for public office too.
Well, I don't know about that.
You ever thought about it?
No, no.
You can do more in the private sector.
I wouldn't know how to compromise. You know, and I think a good
Well, maybe they
politician
need to
does.
do more compromising.
Maybe they do. I mean, you're a centrist, and I'm not. I'm way, way left. I'm so far left, I'm almost right. So I think we're all here to. I think the bottom line is a conservative is someone who believes they stand on their own 2 feet, and I think a liberal is I am my brother's keeper, and I'd rather be my brother's keeper than brag about being on my own 2 feet.
Well, Dan, Lauria, I wish I had another hour to talk to you.
Anytime.
You're just wonderful to come on and talk about your life and what you're doing and where you're headed and your Italian-American heritage.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah. Next time I'll tell you a story about my mother. She was the funniest
Oh, wait,
person I
we
know.
still have time. Give it to me.
Okay.
Give it to me.
Well, all right, I'll give you one of my, my mother was the funniest person I ever knew and the most open. Her side of the family, if you weren't
Was
Italian.
she from Italy or first generation? Naples. So she came over.
My Aunt Millie, her older sister, still alive, 105. Still all there, too. And my other aunt's 90 now. But my mother, everybody was accepted at my house. Didn't matter what color, religion you were. She was so open about it, And when she was dying, I said, Ma, I always appreciate it. All my friends, always welcome here. And she looked at me and said, a cow cannot have a baby with a horse. I said, what? She said, if God didn't want the people to get together, he would make it that they can't have babies. And I said, oh, that's a nice way to look at it. And then she leaned in and she said, and you know what happens when everybody gets together? They all look Italian. Shh, don't tell nobody.
And on that note, that's a wrap. Dan, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Trivial pursuits, spend one this in. Who is this girl? Spend all night kissing, and if one was right here, then who else is missing? Got a little sidetracked, if I'm a wishing to find the keys to the door, but it's also a metaphor. Things keep locked in the grocery store, but mine just the same time. Skip right ahead to the last ride. The harder we look, the less we can see. Don't you know that you need me?